Hackers over the weekend successfully hacked the world. Over 200,000 computers were affected in over 150 different countries. Everyone was hit, from the National Health Institute over in Europe, in England, but also FedEx. Did they pull it off? How'd they pull it off? What did they use? Who's behind it? I'm going to start with a chalkboard, because the media is telling you one story, and it's all accurate, but it's not the story you need to hear. Let's begin with a chalkboard right now. All right, so I want to start with a chalkboard here on what happened and the difference between the media stories. Here's what the media is telling you happened this weekend. Some hackers took some NSA software and they hacked in FedEx, NHS, 150 countries, 200,000 computers were hacked. People were affected. The hackers, they also took them hostage for $300. You could release it. And they're probably going to make about $1 billion. That's pretty much what the story is. And now everybody's talking about, how do we protect? How do you protect your business? This isn't the story. Here's the real story. If you go back, the NSA developed some software that these hackers were using. The software was to be able to seize computers in places like North Korea, so we could go in and if we needed to bomb them, if we needed to do something, we could seize all their computers and they couldn't launch any missiles. Well, the NSA thought that they had a mole inside the NSA because there were leaks that were coming out. So they isolated this mole, fed him some disinformation, and I think, did they actually fire him at one point?
Yeah, detained him and arrested him.
Okay, arrested him. Turns out that wasn't the mole, because it still kept coming out. We don't know who released the information, but they took this software that were used by the hackers, and it got down to a group called the Shadow Brokers. We believe that the Shadow Brokers are an arm of the Russians. This is kind of like Fancy Bear, the people who, broke into the DNC, broke into our elections, also broke into France. The Russians are behind Shadow Brokers, and they tried to put a price tag on this software for $7 million. Well, I don't know about you, but I'm not gonna, hey, let me give you my tracking numbers so you can, I wanna make sure that I get it in time. I'm not spending my money online buying something shady from the NSA. Nobody bid on this. So they did nothing with it. No sale. This is where we left this story about 6-8 months ago. No sale. Here's what happened. Something really important. We bombed Syria, Donald Trump bombed Syria, and then Donald Trump took Steve Bannon off of the National Security Council. This upset the Shadow Brokers, which would mean to me, at least, that these are Russians or they are part of the alt-right. Because Donald Trump promised no more wars, he's not going to get involved in Syria. And who's Steve Bannon? Steve Bannon, we've told you, Breitbart, I've been warning that this guy is really, really dangerous because he wants chaos. He wants to burn the entire thing down to the ground. He's a guy who spouts a lot of Russian nonsense from some of the guys that are around Vladimir Putin. But what he wants is chaos. Important to remember, because that is exactly what the Russians want, and surprise, surprise, that's what the Shadow Brokers want, and that's what we got this weekend. When this happened, the Shadow Brokers decided to release the virus, but just release the operating system to be able to give it to anybody who wants to do anything with it. Well, somebody picked it up. We don't know who it is yet that picked it up, but they're the ones that perpetrated the attack. The media is telling you this part of the story, but this is the part of the story That is important. Because how do you protect? Everyone is talking about Donald Trump, and is he connected to the Russians? Was he taking money to the Russians? Comey, it's about the Russians. This story is about the Russians, and it's about sowing the seeds of chaos in the Western world. That's the story that you need to hear. Where do I have it wrong? Anyone?
You got it. I'm floored by where we're going. So we were talking before about, I mean, the first Cold War basically was, in essence, a spy war. A lot of it was done, I mean, there was a few conflicts and stuff, but basically it was a spy war. The next Cold War, I believe we're there. I think this is Cold War 2.0, and I think it's going to be primarily a cyber war. I mean, you think about the capabilities as well. Like, one of the hardest hit and most publicized spots for the attack was the NHS, National Health Service in the UK. And that wasn't even a target. They didn't target hospitals, but it was shutting down ERs. It was shutting down, people were going in to get surgery. They had to cancel the surgeries. I mean, it was mass chaos in the NHS and the hospitals in the UK. Now, that wasn't even its primary function. Now think about this tool with its primary function specifically to shut down healthcare systems, or its specific purpose of shutting down the power grid.
For what it was meant to do.
Right.
This was funded by the American people. We're not talking about, where's the mole coming from? Shouldn't that be our #1 priority? Who leaked this? This is like taking a nuclear bomb and then putting it out into the open market. Who took the nuclear bomb? Are they still working for the NSA? What else? Who else are they working with? Because most likely it probably wasn't just one person. What are they doing? What is the health of the NSA? We're not talking about any of that, let alone the Russians.
It's interesting too that that the Russians stole the nuclear bomb from us. They couldn't make it until they stole the technology from us. That's pretty much all their technology. They don't have the capacity to invent it themselves or produce it themselves. They have to steal it from us. And it's the same with cyber warfare. We lead the world in cyber warfare. We don't even know the craziness that we can unleash, but we lead the world in this. Now, one of Russia's primary goals here might be to force a proliferation type thing, because they couldn't keep up with this nuclear weapons back in the 50s and 60s. They cannot keep up with this here. So one of the things, they might be forcing this out there. And if that's the case, we haven't seen the end of this.
Yeah, I will tell you, we haven't seen the end of this. And I mean, if you go back to the chalkboard that I wrote on Fox, that I drilled every day, every single day for the last 6 months, I made sure to go back to this chalkboard to make sure it was drilled into everybody's heads. The communists, the anarchists, the socialists, the radicals, and the Islamists will all work together, not as they're coordinating, work together to destabilize the Western world and to cause chaos. This is chaos. The reason why we don't understand the news today, the reason why people are so upset, the reason why we have Donald Trump is because saying that there are 92 genders causes chaos. That's all this is about, is chaos.
I think you've nailed it right on the head. The Russians know that they can't battle us externally. So what do? They sow the seeds of doubt and distrust internally. And what we're going to do is we just continue to fight and bicker over one another. When in reality, we've got to, like you've said, go to the source. Who is it that's really planting
Well, explain this to me, though, because I'm looking at this whiteboard trying to make sure I understand this. So all these people had this software. But we know that one of the targets of the attack was Russia themselves, right?
Yeah.
So it had to have been a third group. It wasn't Russia.
They've just released it online. They want chaos. Okay?
So Russia released it, and then someone used that software against Russia.
They dumped the software online, and
Russia?
then shadow brokers.
Shadow Brokers,
okay?
which is a Russian group.
We think they might be.
Yeah, we think they're connected. We don't have proof positive, but we think they're connected, okay? So the Russian, it's kind of like Wikipedia, or not Wikipedia, WikiLeaks,
Yeah.
where you can't really prove it, but
Maybe
it's probably pretty accurate to say. So they dump it and they release it and they say, anybody in the world want it? And so they did.